We're the movie that didn't get pre-screened last night, but there were 6 showings of Poltergeist.
Jesus.
So we just got out of Tomorrowland, the movie that's definitely a 50%.
Yeah, that's... I want to like this movie more than I did.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what's happening here. It had so many elements that I did like, but it didn't get it. It just didn't hit home, I don't think.
No, it didn't hit home for me either. You know what it kind of was for me? I have to really explain this. Mediocre Jupiter Ascending. Because Jupiter Ascending was a spectacular train wreck, and that was kind of awesome. This movie's not, but it's wildly mediocre, so I'd rather watch Jupiter Ascending.
I get that. Yeah. Fuck.
Because this isn't a bad movie.
No, it's not bad by any means. It's everything about it. Like, if you want to speak technically, is perfectly fine. It just doesn't hit home, I think, the way they were wanting it to.
It's very, very, very Disney.
It is, but
it's the most Disney movie I've seen since, like, The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Yeah, but, I mean, I dig that kind of Disney, and it's nice to see that feel back.
I don't know if I dug it here.
I don't know that I dug it here either, but I think that Disney quality was kind of the point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they tried to modernize it just enough that it was like, you know, if you went a little hokier, I might have been 100% into this. Or went a little straighter and let it be a little less Disney. And
yeah, I think I could have used it a little straighter. I don't know.
It's hard to really pinpoint what's wrong with this movie.
I can pinpoint a few things. Okay, well, at the very beginning of it, there's some flashbacks that are being kind of told by Clooney and the main girl in the movie, and it's very cheesy. Like, the line delivery and the dialogue's kind of weird and jokey, sort of like, is that how you're telling the story? Come on, don't tell it like that. And they kept kind of interrupting the stories that they were telling.
Yeah.
Like, oh, stop, don't say it like that.
I could have done without that period. It just tell the story, and
I could have done without that whole opening thing. The only, like, as it got on, I kind of thought, like, is this whole not the flashback part of it, I understand that being there. Yeah.
That whole jumping back and forth between the two of them. And
like, is this only here just so it's not an hour into the movie that Clooney shows up?
I think possibly, but I think they could have streamlined it without that, and the Clooney reveal would have been a little cooler.
Yeah, because when Clooney is revealed an hour into it, it is radically different than how
Yeah.
we see him at the beginning of it.
Yeah, he's an asshole.
Yeah, he's almost a completely different character. He's almost a completely different character than we see him even by the end of the movie.
Which is fine. That's I think the point.
But I mean, I don't mean it like that. I mean, like, even how he is in the end of the movie that is a bit more hopeful and whatnot, it's still not
different
kind
from
of this kind of jokey dude that we see at the beginning of the movie. And okay, so I didn't even know until like a few weeks ago that this is based on a Disney World thing. But even if you don't know that going into it, you'll figure it out pretty damn quick, because when it flashes back to, was it 63, 64?
64.
The 64 World's Fair, in which the first 20 minutes of this movie are kind of like a prequel to The Rocketeer.
Which is kind of awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of cool. Like, Clooney as a kid has built like a jetpack, and he's presenting it to Hugh Laurie at the World's Fair, and Hugh Laurie's not interested because it doesn't really work that well, but then there's this little girl who is, and then she gives kid Clooney, like, okay, follow us into this tunnel ride that's literally, it's a small world.
Which was at the 64 World.
Yeah. It's literally, it's a small world. So they're going into the It's a Small World ride that then takes them to Tomorrowland. Okay. And then it kind of flashes back then it flashes to this teenage girl's story, in which this is what you see in the trailer, where she's getting out of jail and she gets the pin, and the mechanics of this pin are incredibly dangerous.
Incredibly dangerous. For something designed by supposed geniuses.
Yeah.
This thing is frightening. So it's in the trailers. If you've seen the trailers, she touches the pen, she sees Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
But basically what it is, it's a technologically induced hallucination.
Yeah.
So the real world is still there. She just doesn't see it. So she's like trying to walk towards Tomorrowland through that field, and like walking into walls.
She falls down the stairs.
Yeah, she could have broken her neck. End of fucking movie. She could have gotten hit by a car. End of movie.
When the thing, because the thing has like a little like timer on it, and when that ends, she's like waist deep in water. And had that even gone any farther, again, this is a very short movie. This would be a very short movie. She would drown.
In water in a Florida swamp.
Yeah, she would drown.
There's gators and snakes and shit.
Yeah, she goes out to this field, still like, okay, it'll be less dangerous if I do it here. But no, I mean, you're still gonna run into some shit, and she does. And then, I'm way jumping ahead here, but at the end, when other people throughout the world are given this pin, I can only assume the mechanics are the same.
They gotta be.
And so I look at Dave, and all these people have touched the pin, and they're appearing in the field like you see in the trailer. As soon as the movie is over, I just look at Dave, and I'm like, so many people are just about to get hit by a bus.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of like genius science stuff that is like, that's a death trap.
Like, if you're trying to save the planet, man, you're getting rid of potentially really smart people here.
Yeah. Let's hope they're as smart as you think they are.
Yeah, and this is written by Lindelof, who even in this movie has him and J.J. Abrams have a thing where they just like people suddenly getting run over by things.
Oh, God.
All the time. Lost, other things J.J. Abrams has written, things that Lindelof has written, and Lindelof wrote this. And sure enough, there is a scene in this movie where a character is in the street and suddenly gets hit by something. It's okay, it's a robot in this movie, so she's fine.
But she does look like a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So it's still a little shocking.
Yeah, and Kid Clooney seems to be in love with this girl.
Yeah.
And this appears to be something that old 50-something-year-old Clooney hasn't quite gotten over, which is a little
creepy.
Oh, were you picking up on that too?
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was supposed to be wistful, and
it was a little creepy.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like wistful and like she's a robot, not a real person. It's okay if he still harbors emotions, but she looks like a 12-year-old girl.
She's built like a 10-year-old.
Yeah. So basically, Clooney's making googly eyes at a child.
Yeah. When he's not also yelling at children, which that is awesome.
He's yelling at children a lot in this movie, and it's great.
Yeah.
But, okay. Children actors in this movie, honestly, not bad.
That girl, that little girl was really good.
Who plays the robot? Fantastic, actually.
Some good action scenes with her, too. She did kick some ass.
Yeah. Now, the other girl, who's the main girl in the movie, she did fine. It's the girl from The Longest Ride. She honestly did fine. But she is not 16 years old, does not look 16 years old, cannot pull off 16 years old. She is very obviously a young woman in her early to mid-20s, and they should have just gotten someone younger. Like, I hate to say it, because, yes, I know it's Hollywood and that's what they do. Like, you know, The Breakfast Club, all those kids, they were in their fucking 20s, you know?
Yeah, Judd Nelson was like in his mid-20s, I think. Which...
sometimes it works fine, sometimes it doesn't. But in this case, like, this girl very obviously isn't a teenager. And especially in the last movie she was in, which wasn't even 2 months ago, she was playing like a college senior. Which made sense and seemed age appropriate. It's It's a weird jump. It's a weird age gap, and I found it a little distracting.
What I found distracting about her wasn't necessarily that part of it, even though I agree she doesn't look like a teenager. Maybe I'm kind of used to that kind of thing by now, but but I agree she doesn't look like she's 16. But what I found distracting about her, and I found it distracting with a lot of people in this, even Clooney in the opening scene, was really how they were reading a lot of their lines, especially with this girl in the movie. These lines are read, a lot of them, at least in the first hour of this movie, as if it's an animated film. Well, they're acting as if it felt like if you were to close your eyes and hear what these lines are, how they're being read, how they're being spoken, the kind of enunciations they're putting on words, kind of the jolly feeling they're putting on words. If you close your eyes, you would probably think you were watching an animated film, and that would work in an animated film, and then you open your eyes and it's live action, and it feels weird. I don't know. Maybe that's where I'm coming from, in that, like, this is a very, very, very Disney movie. It's acted like a much older Disney film, but with a lot of plot points that are extremely modern, and a lot of that was really jarring for me. But an hour in, when Clooney pops back up again,
yeah,
suddenly I was a little more on board with it, because crotchety shut-in Clooney was kind of awesome.
Crotchety shut-in Clooney, like the first 20 minutes with Clooney is fantastic, and leads to a fantastic action scene with his booby-trapped robot murder house.
That was so good.
Yeah, that was a great sequence.
Easily the best scene in the movie.
Yeah,
it was like watching some double switch night trap kind of FMV game in his house, with all these weird booby traps and these bizarre robots that I think are supposed to be the Dave Clark 5.
They kind of had that look, yeah.
I swear to God, the guy, when he first showed up, he said his name was Agent Dave Clark, and they're dressed kind of like that, and I kind of snickered a little bit. I'm like, that's kind of funny. I'm like, I don't know if I misheard that, but if I heard correctly, and if I'm getting this joke here with these really smiley, bright-eyed robots in these kind of 60s rocker kind of suits, I kind of like that joke a little bit.
And this movie had some, it had a lot of great moments, and most of the reviews I read, and most of the time for movies like this, I just kind of breeze through and get the gist, and most of the reviews I read were people complaining this movie is overly preachy. Yeah, it's preachy, but it's not a bad kind of preachy. It's a message that...
It's definitely a movie with a message.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie with a message, but it's not a bad message. It's not a message that I think anybody could possibly disagree with anymore. It's the basic message of this movie is that if we're all gonna make it through the future, we need a little bit of fucking optimism. Which... That's fine. That's great. That's a good message. Their delivery system to getting that message out was a little overly complicated for such a simple concept.
I had to ask you after the movie what some of the mechanics were by the end of this thing.
And I don't think the mechanics were too... I think the mechanics are well enough explained, but there's just so much going on that it's hard to retain it.
Yeah, maybe I
had to really dial in and focus to keep that information.
Yeah, and I wasn't sitting there just letting it go in one ear and out the other. I wasn't. I was trying to follow this by the end of the movie. I was trying, but in the last quarter of this movie, it is very, very, very exposition heavy. It was kind of hard for me to keep track about. I mean, I knew what they were what the characters were trying to do. I knew what they were trying to fix.
But why and how are so basically the whole concept, she finds the pen, she sees the world, she wants to go to the world, she tracks down Clooney so Clooney can take her there. They end up breaking the Eiffel Tower to do it. Whatever. So they go through this dimensional void, get to the other world where Hugh Laurie is basically immortal, and he's the ruler. He's like a governor of some kind. He's not like an evil despot. And he's not even a bad guy. He's just kind of a pessimist.
Yeah.
And a bit of a dick. But he's not a villain. Like, and so
he's just kind of like a, hey, this isn't my problem kind of guy.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. Like, yeah, that's the... Yes, the idea of the movie is we need to get over this kind of thinking and move forward, but, like, he's not a villain, you know? He's not like, I'm going to destroy the world and all you fuckers got it coming. It's just like, I'm just going to watch and let this happen. This isn't my problem.
I've got my own world here. Look, I'm going to take care of my own shit. Like, y'all just did this yourself. Whatever, not my fucking problem. But then, like, yeah, he... And this is kind of I had some issues with tone in this movie, because there is all this kind of whimsical stuff going on, especially from the girl who's has like this kind of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory wonder and awe and stuff like that in her face. That's surrounded by stuff the villains are doing, like just straight up like shooting and obliterating people. Yeah, and this is like kind of like. Right in between stuff that, like, jokey stuff that's going on. And I'm like, this random dude just got, like, fucking obliterated. Whether it's just, like, some cops on the street or, like, an Eiffel Tower guard.
Yeah, there's some weird straight-up just murder in this movie.
Yeah, and it's tonally, that doesn't really work, because that seems like this is happening in a much different universe than the rest of this movie. Even by the end, when Hugh Laurie is just straight-up crushed.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Okay, so they get to it. Hugh Laurie is obviously the kind of bad guy in this movie, and what is happening is that there's a countdown going on throughout the movie that you see occasionally. In Tomorrowland, George Clooney apparently, as a young man, built this machine that predicts the future, kind of is the concept. But basically they discover that like it's predicting the annihilation of Earth within like 50-something days. And it's predicting this, and what they figure out is, since it's predicting it and it's somehow broadcasting as well, that Hugh Laurie set it to broadcast, sort of, I don't want to say it's like, it's not showing up on TV's kind of broadcasting, it's like, the idea is filtering through to people, and so people have just kind of taken the idea and run with it, and that's why we have zombie TV shows and Mad Max and shit like that, and I like those things. But Hugh Laurie's hope was that people would see that stuff and be like, oh no, we have to fix this, and it didn't work, so he's like, fuck humanity, we're closing the doors, you're dead. That's not really like a villain kind of move. It's just like, it's a dude who's lost hope. Like, this is a Disney movie. That is a character that needed redemption, not death.
Not like...
He gets crushed by a side of a building.
Yeah.
For really no reason.
Yeah. This is after he's got his leg pinned down by this piece of, like, pillar that's kind of fallen on him. And just this giant spherical... whatever it was supposed to be gets blown up and just falls on him, and of course right before there's a joke right before it happens, he just goes, oh bollocks, and then it falls and just crushes him to death.
That's the thing, he's not...
Bless you.
Thank you. He's not a villain in the traditional sense. He's not out to hurt people. He's not out to destroy anything. He is an idealist that has lost his way. In a movie where you're trying to inspire hope, which is the idea of this movie, you don't kill the idealist that's lost his way, because that's George Clooney as well.
Yeah.
George Clooney, instead of just being like, he went, fuck it in a different way.
Yeah.
So they kill the idealist that's lost his way instead of trying to redeem that character, and to me that just seems...
Maybe to me that seems like a studio note, like it has to have
the villain has to, or the villain has to die. And like you can still have a protagonist that is turned or saved, and you can still have a good resolution out of that. You don't have to just straight up kill the dude, because it just seemed cold.
Yeah, all of the murder in this movie kind of did.
Yeah. Because there is, for every person that dies in this movie, there is absolutely no consequences, after effects. That is never even mentioned again. The only person that dies, that gets like a death scene, is the fucking robot.
Yeah. Who has learned what love is.
Exactly!
It only took her 100 years.
Yeah, it's just... And that's the thing. I think it was one of those movies that, like, honestly, it just... I think maybe there were enough studio notes to, like, let's make this a little more kid-friendly, a little easier to go through, and there's a bad guy you can root against. It's taking a complicated issue and boiling it down to its most definite points, which... I understand. You got 2 hours to get a big concept across. And tell a story.
Yeah.
But I honestly think it was a movie made by smart people that was dumbed down for dumb people, and I think that's why it failed.
And easily needed a lot more rewrites.
I wouldn't even say a lot. It just needed a little fine tuning, honestly. And this could have been a really it was still parts of it were a blast to watch.
Oh, that house sequence was amazing.
That house sequence
Clooney
was
is
great.
really good in this, but I mean, you're right in that, like, there is stuff in here that just seems like it was someone was told to put something like this in here. Like, okay, for instance, like, you know, we need an action beat here, 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 and here, you know, on this page, that page. Yeah. Okay, sometimes that works. Sometimes that works just fine. The best scene in the movie is that scene in the house. Other times it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure someone's like, no, we need something action-y to happen here. For instance, when Kid Clooney first goes into Tomorrowland and falls off of a bridge, and there's this giant scene where he's like, and struggling to get to his jetpack and shit like that. Didn't need to be there. And
even if it was there, it didn't need to be so long, because the idea of that whole scene is to introduce this wonderful land with this really cool kind of late 50s, early to mid 60s, like atomic era sci-fi kind of design, which I love that kind of design.
The city of tomorrow.
No, exactly. I love that shit. Like, I really do love that kind of design work. It's great.
Yeah, but, and the little glimpses we get of that in this movie are really good.
Yeah, really fantastic.
But we don't need, like, this scene of, like, oh, he almost falls to his death and shit for this 3-minute sequence where he's, like, swimming in air to get to his jetpack and shit.
No, exactly. Like, we don't need that to last so long. Okay, he's got a jetpack. He falls off. He's already got the jetpack. Then he flies out of the clouds, sees big, beautiful fucking city. End of scene. We get the point, and it's just exciting enough to keep the story going. It doesn't need to be 5 or 8 minutes long. And then, it's a part of the movie, too, where it's like, this isn't that important. We don't need to focus on it for a half hour. We need to get the basic information in. And then focus on the main story and move that along and use some of that time to explain some of your science a little bit better, so so I don't have to sit there and go, okay, I got this.
Yeah, I think I'm doing it. I think I'm kind of with you. Oh, I don't think I'm with you.
Like, I get the concept, but don't get how it's working. Okay.
There's certainly things I appreciate about it. You know, I appreciate they're trying to do something original here. You know, like they're making an original science fiction film. It's not a remake of anything. It's not a sequel to anything.
No, I liked that.
That's cool. I do like that the trailers really don't tell you much about this movie.
Which was great. I knew almost next to nothing about what was going to happen in this movie other than Tomorrowland.
Yeah, other than what we see in the trailer, which is very little of this movie.
Which is great. I love stuff like that. I like going into a movie as blank as I can. Like, I like to get a gist of what critics are thinking about it. But I don't want, like, half the time it's like, I want to be surprised by the plot. I want to go along on this ride. Because that's the best way for us to be objective, too, I think.
It is. I mean, in terms of, like, looking at what critics say, I don't typically read reviews till after I see the movie, but we mention this all the time. Like, I mean, we'll all go to, like, Rotten Tomatoes and see what, like, the percentage is.
And that's generally
shit like
speaking
that.
What I'll do, too, is I'll hit Rotten Tomatoes, and I'll just, on the web app, I'll just cruise through the list of reviews and read, like, the one-sentence header that they give, and it's like, okay, like...
I just typically look at if it's something that I'm not planning
Look at
on
the
seeing,
percentage.
I'll definitely look and see what some of the lines are. But like, the advertising for this movie is in so many ways completely the opposite of what the
Yeah,
advertising
like
is
the
for
poster's like
Terminator Genesis.
Clooney. And, oh yeah, which I think that movie's giving away too much. Sorry, just
It's given away
fucking
way too goddamn
humid
much.
as
Like,
fuck in
so
this
I
car.
appreciate the advertising in this is not. It is not that just completely
Yeah.
seems to give away so goddamn much. What were you about to say about the poster?
Oh, the poster that's on the theater over here, it's Clooney standing in the field with right in front of him little kid Clooney. And it's like, I can't say it's misleading, but at the same time, that's not a good representation of the movie either.
I mean, I get it. Like, it's the kid looking at the same thing that Clooney as an adult also is, both of it
Yeah.
looking at it at two different points of their lives, but it's a poster you're not going to get unless you've seen the movie. Because hell, like, I don't even remember seeing that kid in the advertisements for the movie, so when I saw the poster
Yeah.
walking up to the theater, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah.
Like, I thought there was a girl in this movie.
Which, little kid Clooney, by the way, not a terrible actor, but looks exactly what you would think little Clooney would look like.
They did-
Like, straight up looks
Yeah.
like, that's George Clooney's, like, baby son.
Yeah.
It's gotta be his... Like, I don't think he has kids, but I would have sworn that would have been one of his children.
Oh, yeah, they did a good job with that.
Yeah.
They totally did. And the kid did a good job.
Yeah.
He did. He did. Like, I have my issues with, like, delivery and stuff like that with a lot of lines in this movie, but like,
some of that's direction, and I like Brad Bird.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of those guys that I want to see more movies he does, because this is only his, second live-action movie?
It's Mission Impossible 4 and this. Yeah, I
think
think
so.
so. Yeah.
So I mean, he is an animation director. That's his fieldhouse. So I get why some of the deliveries seem like that. Like you were saying, it seems kind of like an animated movie. But that's where he's from, and that's what he does. Which you can make that work, and I think this is the type of movie where you can get away with that to a degree.
Personally, I didn't think it worked.
I'm not saying it did. I'm saying you can make that work.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah, I've seen movies before a lot where I'm like, oh, it's like a live action cartoon,
Yeah.
and I could say that about a compliment of something. This one, not really,
Like,
but I mean,
shoot 'em up.
oh hell yeah, shoot 'em up. Fuck yeah.
It's the best live-action Bugs Bunny cartoon ever made.
Oh god, yeah. This birthday card says that you're gonna be a man. God damn, I love that movie. It's a better live action cartoon, I think, than this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, shoot 'em up I could watch again and again. This I can't, really.
Are we actually out of battery? How long did we and Jillian talk about fucking...
We are out of we should...
We've already said everything.
Yeah,
I don't think I have anything else, do you?
Not really.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're out of battery, but you're not missing anything else we're saying. We just want to talk about trailers.
We were just gonna ramble for a bit.
This is a rental. This is... for me, this is easily a rental.
Easily a rental. I would give this caveat to it, though. If you have a child between the ages of, 5 and 10, take them to it. It might be a good sit for that.
Yes,
Because
yeah.
in the long run, this is what I'll give this movie. This is the kind of movie that I want every, 5 to 10-year-old kid to find and love, because it's got a great message that I would hope sinks into them. And then by the time they're about 15 or so, they can keep that message but have better taste.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you. I agree with you. I think, there's nothing wrong with a little kid enjoying the fuck out of this movie.
Yeah.
There isn't. Us, we just want to see Mad Max again.
Fuck yeah. That movie had hope too, god damn it.
Yeah, fuck yeah, it did, man. So for me, for someone like us, this is a rental.
Yeah,
and
rental or take your kids. Other than that, you don't need to see it in the theater.
no, go see Mad Max again.
Go see Mad Max again. Yeah. Fuck, go see Avengers again.
Right. See you next week.